Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. And I just started recording as well.
Okay. All right, Casey is gone. Uh-oh.
If she has trouble getting back in, I'll send her a message, but I can stay on the call and help out however needed.
So the slide 15, when I say, and now a word from Casey Dawson.
Well, I can't do that.
Oh, why not, Courtney?
I mean, I could wing it.
No, we'll just say. All right, we'll be fine. Anthony, anything you need to tell me? How do we avoid that awful echo problem we had on the previous call?
That was just an issue with one person's microphone, as far as I could tell. There's nothing really we could do about it, but it's pretty rare. So hopefully nobody has a similar issue.
Was it true he had two different ways of getting his, did he have two different lines open, computer and phone or something?
Yeah, it could have been something like that. That's usually what'll cause that. So then the microphone doesn't know what to take out, basically.
And Anthony has made both Casey and I co-hosts so that we can help. If we see anybody that's not muted, we can go in and mute their microphones for you.
That'd be great. Okay, I think we'll close our rehearsal and T-minus 4 minutes to start. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm back. I had to reboot my computer.
Sorry, we're on a pause now, so folks are calling in. I think we decided, Casey, if all right with you, we're going to use the chat function only.
That's great. So you'd like me to call out the questions as they come in, or
Yeah.
wait, okay,
That's fine.
sounds good.
Okay, well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone you may be in. Welcome to the SWOG Clinical Trials Partnerships, SWOG-CTP update forum. It's our first open forum since we became official about 2 years ago now. We'll look forward to this chance to update you all on where we're at and have some discussion. So just to start, you've maybe seen this slide already, but just reminding you about the mute button. Please mute yourself unless you're speaking. We are going to use the chat function for questions, not the raise your hand. So that can be found on the bottom right of your screen. At least that's where it is on mine. And we will be monitoring that. We're going to go through a 17 slide presentation, and then after that we'll have plenty of time for some good discussion, and we'll use the chat at that time. We will not have any polling, and we are recording this for future transcription and use, because I'm sure you're all going to have great ideas. Okay, let's see. Should we wait for more to call in or just jump in? Why don't I let you, Anthony, switch out to my slide deck now? Great. Next slide, please. Well, again, welcome those of you who had just called in, and make sure you're muted, please. I'm Kathy Albane, the SWOG Vice Chair for Clinical Trials Partnerships, and I'm at Loyola University Chicago Stritch School of Medicine in the Division of Hematology Oncology. And I'm a medical oncologist specializing in breast and lung cancer over the course of my career. And joining me is Casey Dawson. She is the Assistant Director of Administration for SWOG. Most of you know Casey, and very much pleased to have her as my right and left hands as part of the CTP administration. And we'll say more about the other folks involved along the way. But Casey is in the group chair's office at OHSU Knight Cancer Institute. Thank you again, Casey, for all your help and putting this meeting together. Next slide. So today we're going to cover what CTP is. I mean, I see running across the top folks that already know what it is, and some names I've never interacted with directly. So we'll start out with just some baseline information. Then we'll move on to discuss how CTP interacts with the SWOG scientific committees, as well as jointly develops with industry the process. I'll give you some examples of what's currently in the works, together with some breaking news, which I'll convince you to please stay on at least through the slide presentation. We'll discuss how you can get involved and, of course, have the open discussion. Next slide. So SWOG-CTP's mission really is to establish and administer scientific preferred partnerships between SWOG and industry. That is the ultimate goal. And this is the mechanism whereby SWOG's Cancer Research Network of over 1,000 member institutions collaborates directly with industry, where industry is a preferred research partner. SWOG-CTP develops study platforms of mutual interest from phase 1B trials to 2 to randomized 2 to 3, and even registration options. SWOG-CTP facilitates rapid testing of new agents, including combinations of novel agents across disease sites or broadly within a disease. And our work path flows through dedicated SWOG-CTP channels, including study design, review, approval, development, contracting, etc., with concurrent joint industry collaboration. And tap the same operations, statistics, and data management personnel as we're used to in our NCI-funded trials, but using non-federal dollars from our industry partners for the CTP effort of all the personnel. Next slide. So the key to the CTP process, which is an enhancement of what SWOG has done over the years, is that we're utilizing joint study design and conduct between the SWOG committees and the industry partners. We're not necessarily going to the partner and say, give us a drug for X, Y, or Z studies. SWOG-CTP overall still does that, but we're talking about the preferred partnerships today and the platform studies that we can develop with our partners. And there are three broad categories of our process that you're used to in SWOG, but that is uniquely tailored to CTP. And from left to right is a timeline picture, and these different rectangles are occurring in parallel with each other to allow the efficiency of the process. So at the beginning, there's the joint scientific and clinical discussions with our industry partner. The ideas will come from either side, often do actually, and there are discussions about what types of designs would be possible. And then as soon as we have a letter of interest from the company, our firm commitment to proceed with a collaboration, the budgets and contract negotiation processes start. And then protocol development and study build according to our usual mechanisms using PRC review, for those of you familiar with that process, the rapid review, statistical center involvement, and an independent triage process to replace the NCI steering committee reviews, since these are not in federally funded trials. So we will create our own expert triage groups to review both concept and final protocol through the FDA submission phase, then and activation. Next slide. So there are many possible study design arrangements, but I highlight the two that we are working on primarily with our partnership discussions now. The first would be where we have access to the majority or strategic components of a company's early pipeline, and we test them within more than one disease site or in a disease agnostic pathway based on biomarkers, molecular findings, etc. So this, of course, you've all worked with these types of studies, allows rapid testing of agents, single or in combinations. But because we're dealing with a preferred pipeline, we can invoke a variety of parallel phase 2s in scientifically rational settings, and the option to move to a phase 3 or to a phase 3 registration. Next slide. Or you can have a rolling multi-arm phase 2 combination platform, which then would likely be one stage, one disease with identical eligibility, where each arm besides a control is a separate phase 2 testing agent or agents in all arms, depending on whether you're looking at a single drug or a doublet, with a variety of interesting partners, including earlier as well as late assets of the particular company in the partnership. While we can still do a single phase 2 trial, and with a few companies we're starting out that way, but there the intent is to explore new options for some of their other assets, either that are marketed in other disease sites, or perhaps we would then move to a multi-arm trial with the same design or platform. Next slide. So what I'd like to do now is give you some examples of platform designs in development with company, and I have the company listed as company A, B, C, D, etc. And the drugs is drugs 1, drug 2, etc. Because we do not want to divulge any confidential discussions at this stage, except for my late breaking announcement, which we'll get to. All right, next slide, please. So with company A, we are far along in platform design in the breast committee, which is the molecular match using ctDNA and metastatic ER positive, HER2 negative, or first line standard of care aromatase inhibitor. I'm sorry, these patients are on first line standard of care aromatase inhibitor plus the CDK4/6 inhibitor palbociclib. And based on CTD, I'm not going to go through the details of the study design. I just want you to see an example of what we're talking about and the types of trials we're working on with various partners. So based on the ctDNA status at a certain time point, the patients either continue on standard of care with monitoring, or they move to one of initially 4 arms with an investigational drug from this company in 3 of the arms with other partner drugs, as you can see there. In the control arm, there's the opportunity to still get the investigational arm drug, and this is designed as a parallel randomized phase 2 with the hope that with sufficient activity and significant success in a given arm, you may want to then expand to a phase 3 comparison with a control. So this type of design, we actually have a meeting with our industry partner during this group meeting week, and we are quite pleased to move along with this. And the overall PI for this trial has been hard at work, as has Casey's group, with presenting the preliminary budget, the statistical center with working on the statistics, and happy to have this in our portfolio soon, we hope, with a formal announcement. Next slide. So this is a second example, the type of study. This is being done in the GU committee in muscle invasive bladder cancer with a different company. Again, using parallel phase 2s, but here basing where the patients are, which basket, so to speak, they're put in. It'll be based on tumor subtyping done in the first line neoadjuvant setting. And luminal papillary, basal, or all other subtypes will be individually randomized to a compound being discussed right now among several attractive options for the luminal papillary group, randomized against neoadjuvant chemotherapy standard. Basal, a PD-1, PD-L1 compound against standard neoadjuvant chemotherapy. And then all others will get a doublet of immunotherapy plus chemotherapy versus chemotherapy. And those individual trials will then be moved to phase 3, hopefully, if they are successful. And also opportunity here, as well as in the previous design, the companies are interested in rolling in more compounds. So that's what makes these studies so exciting, is the companies we're talking with have very deep pipelines, and as they have interesting compounds, they'll bring more into this study as some compounds finish and succeed, some may not reach success level, and others will be brought in to replace them. Also, I might add, for all of these studies that I'm talking about, they're being designed with the goal of having junior investigators and seniors on each trial arm, so that there is the opportunity for junior investigators to co-chair an exciting trial and work with it in its development. Next slide. So Company C, we're working with the leukemia and transplant committees in what I'm calling here uncommon scenarios, meaning it's very difficult to mount trials at single institutions with SWOGs, 1,000+ sites. We should be able to do a study here. This one is in MPN, MDS overlap, and high-risk CMML, where there are 2 cohorts. I'm not going to go through this either in detail, but in cohort 1, drug 1 plus drug 2, both assets of this company are tested in a phase 2 setting. And in the other, we'll have the JAK inhibitor with those 2 drugs in combination. And then Company C also working in, next slide, please. We're working with them in pH positive B cell ALL. And this is, I just got a more recent draft of this and I didn't have time to update the slide. But this is a complex design and there's much more to it than this, as you all know, in B cell ALL. But looking at another asset, a different drug than in the previous study from this company, and combining it in induction and consolidation phases with the agents shown there. Next slide. Then we move on to Company D, and this is an example where we're not looking at a complex platform design like the previous 4 examples, but here we're looking at one space, EGFR positive, typical mutants, and hopefully in the near future, atypical mutants in non-small cell lung cancer within the lung committee. We do have an LOI received from the company for typical mutants and a very mature capsule response to the company's initial comments on the design, just about ready to go back to the company with a conference call late this month to hopefully finalize the design and move on to submission to triage and finalization of budget issues. And then there is a hope that an atypical mutant study will follow, perhaps in the registration space, but that's to be discussed yet. And then I mentioned at the beginning that, you know, we're looking for preferred partnerships in addition to these platform trials, but preferred partnerships in looking at a lot of assets across their pipeline and multiple disease sites in the group. And it's been planning stages with Company A. And I received an email this morning, as did Casey, and forwarded to our group chair that Novartis I can name as Company C. And they have given me permission to announce the imminent execution of our collaborative agreement for the preferred partnership. So I hear applause all around. This has been a lot of work, but on both sides, and we're very excited. We anticipate, fingers, toes crossed, signing the agreement in 2 weeks. So the 2 leukemia and those 2 trials I showed in the leukemia committee will be the first step of this partnership. But we did have a wonderful call recently with all their scientific leadership about their pipeline across disease types and could be disease agnostic, very rich pipeline. And we will be working with our committee chairs across the group on separate calls, configuring those calls to meet the needs of the particular pipeline discussion that we want to have. So please look forward to this as it evolves. And then I would say we have several, at least 3, 4 others pending level of interest with companies that I'm not showing to you today, but we're very excited about the interest in this program, and especially that we will now have our first preferred partner very soon officially. And I would hope to have other companies join on because then, pipelines talk to each other as well. And we're already discussing collaborations across companies to come up with combinations of agents. So exciting times for all of us in SWOG and for our patients especially. Next slide. And then we have a brand new SWOG-CTP task force or subcommittee. I like to think of them as a task force. Components of them are meeting right now at the same time in the Digital Engagement Committee, unfortunately, as this meeting. But as you all know, there are many emerging research opportunities with our non-pharmaceutical colleagues with interventions and tools that could be standalone trials or combined with therapeutic studies. And we already have several industry partners interested. And this task force was formed tapping from our SWOG leadership with expertise in this area. We held an inaugural meeting and will be meeting again after the group meeting since several discussions will be ongoing about these types of studies. Next slide. So that completes my broad run through. I'll have a few more slides at the end, but I wanted to give Casey Dawson a chance to, in her role as the lead administrator for SWOG-CTP, to add her 2 cents to what I've said and perhaps highlight some of the important forward motion successes we have had to date. Casey.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I don't know that I've got too much to add. You've covered a lot of the good stuff, but I think it's important to note that CTP has been around for quite some time, facilitating collaboration between SWOG and industry. And so a lot of this work is familiar from the NCI side of the fence, right? So we are doing our best to keep it familiar for our sites and ease site burden by using recognizable systems, data management systems. We are planning on using existing contracts with our sites, so hoping to ease the burden there. We've been soliciting feedback from our sites around clinical trial administration at the site level. So site feasibility assessments and other aspects of clinical trials at the site level. And so if you're from a site, I see some sites here on the participant list. If you're interested in helping us just understand how we can make this as easy for you as possible, please be in touch. And I think, on the flip side of this, since we have been working with industry for a number of years, we've developed some really solid relationships, and we are looking forward to joint development of these projects and strategies around contracting to ease the administrative burden there, and just deepening these relationships into evolving, lasting partnerships. So I think, unless you've got other specifics, Dr. Albane, that you'd like me to go into.
No, that's great, Casey. I think that we're trying to make this as user-friendly as possible, but what we're learning as we go is that each company has, how their processes work and how ours work have to, of course, be a happy marriage. And we're adjusting as we go some of our processes, but maintaining what's great about SWOG. We're not changing anything that works for us, and we are finding ways forward with great discussions with the various companies. Next slide. So in addition to Casey, I wanted to acknowledge the executive leadership, scientific advisory, and operations expertise that's been part and parcel of what I presented, as well as the success moving forward. So there is an executive committee for CTP comprised of Drs. Blanky, Lara, LeBlanc, Hirschman, and Ray. Jimmy, you're a ray of sunshine, I see there. I misspelled typo there on your name. And in addition, Casey Dawson, Dana Sparks, Director of Operations, Nathan Erickson, our administrator for SWOG, and Joe Horn from the Hope Foundation. So we meet monthly as a group, and invaluable discussions have been held and decisions made in an efficient manner. Also, equally important are the committee chairs and executive officers who are partners and play an advisory role, both. In the May meeting for the committee chairs, I'll be providing an update for them. And some of them are on the Scientific Advisory Board, which is a separate group of 25 experts across all disease sites. Not just, I didn't want to just make it the committee chairs, so we have others that have specific expertise that helps talk to these companies, for example, several experts in immunotherapy, etc. And then last but not least, protocol operations. I mentioned Dana already on the executive committee as a director of operations, but Crystal Miwa, an incredibly intelligent and helpful person as a project manager. I was lucky to have her signed to CTP. Thank you, Crystal, if you're on. And then Chrissy Laubach, as well as our protocol coordinator. Next slide. So in summary, SWOG-CTP is an independent limited liability corporation with its own leadership, processes, and funding agreements. But the mission of SWOG, as we know it, and SWOG-CTP is really the same: to significantly improve lives through cancer clinical trials and translational research. And CTP meets this mission in two ways. It obtains and distributes industry support for federally funded SWOG trials. As Casey mentioned in the past, that still goes on among the committees. It's gone well and will continue those NCI funded trials who will have an industry part in terms of drug supply or other components. But also CTP runs rigorous, scientifically relevant industry supportive trials with no federal funding, especially through the Preferred Partnership Program, and a focus on platform studies within or across disease types. Next slide. So how can you get involved? As Casey mentioned, please do. We have our own email, and it's monitored regularly. If you have ideas or interests, or perhaps have industry contacts, you know, several of our ideas came this way already through the investigators in SWOG. And also you can see this information spelled out on the Hope Foundation's website with the link there. And the link is also available on next to the Hope Foundation's portion of the meeting agenda. You scroll down to the bottom and you'll see CTP, and you can click there as well. Next slide. Right, well, that concludes the formal presentation. So more than happy to entertain discussion. Those of you on the advisory board or SWOG leadership who want to chime in too, feel free. I mean, literally, don't feel slighted. The breaking news just came, and I got the group chair's permission to share really just right before this call. So nobody's missed out on that announcement in any other way. We're just thrilled about that. Casey, do you see anything coming through on the chat? Reminding folks to go to the chat rather than raise hands.
We had a question come in about site eligibility to participate for these trials, and that's a great question. And the answer is yes. All SWOG member sites will, these studies will be open to all SWOG member sites.
Right, and that's an attractive feature for industry partners, because they don't need to go out and do site selection. We've got more than 1,000 there, and sites will select whether they open a trial or not based on their ability and their local menu of trials, as usual, as they would for an NCI funded trial. Other questions? Crystal, I see you there. There you are. Hello. You want to add anything, please, from your perspective in operations? I think a lot of the sites may be worried that, oh no, this is going to be different data management requirements, et cetera. And Mike LeBlanc or Kathy Tangen, if you're still on, also chime in here. Crystal?
Can you hear me? Am I off mute?
You are off mute. Crystal, you'll be next. Yeah, I think Crystal, you were muted. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say one of the things that Casey could or you could Casey bring up is there will be site reimbursement for studies, right? And that probably depends on the study. And I don't know if you covered that earlier.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it looks like we've got a couple of questions coming in too. We will have a site reimbursement for each study, and you are right. It is likely dependent on the complexity of this study. So
The amount's dependent, but that's great, Mike, that you brought this up, because we realize that in these types of trials, there will not be NCI credit, quote unquote, but we want the funding to be more competitive with a fully industry-run study. It may not reach that level, but it will at least address all the needs of the sites wherever there's extra requirements, for example, at a much higher level than the money received from an NCI-funded study. Also, there will be credits toward Board of Governor membership, other things that Dr. Blanky is thinking about to come along. So, Crystal, did you want to add something? Or Kathy Tangen?
I've got a question.
Sure,
And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Crystal.
just a minute, Casey, hold those. I wanted to have Crystal
I
comment.
can also answer Dr. O'Rourke's question too. So hi everybody, my name is Crystal Neal. I'm the Clinical Trials Project Manager for CTP. And, you know, I'm going to be helping a lot of the pharmaceutical companies work through the process of getting their protocol created and activated and on our system. We will be also shepherding a lot of the regulatory pieces for this. So Casey or Dr. Alving, did you happen to mention the IRB that we will be using?
No, go ahead.
So we will be utilizing the WIRB. So we are looking forward to helping sites work with their relationship with the WIRB and getting them up and running. It's for the most part, it's going to be a central IRB. I think that we are entertaining the idea of also having individual IRBs or local IRBs being used as well. So, you know, more to come on that as we develop our process. A lot of our revisions and site work will remain the same as you do for any other SWOG study. For studies that are involving PROs, we are working with our PRO core team to figure out the best way to handle all of those. Of course, we want to make sure that we are tailoring to the sites and to patients and how much burden that may be on any individual patient. And so that will definitely be taken into consideration as we go through this. And I've been working with the PRO core team to kind of come up with an idea of how best to handle different studies that do have that. We do some of our studies that we currently are working on do involve PROs, so we'll be able to work through that and see where we come.
Mike, do you want to expand on that in any way? Dr. O'Rourke asked the question about PROs.
Yeah, I don't think that.
Mark O'Rourke, not Mike LeBlanc, sorry. Mark O'Rourke, do you want to say anything more?
Just to say that I think, especially in advanced cancer, the patient experience, we're looking more closely at the quality of life, and there are a number of measures that get beyond the sum of symptoms, and I think these may be valuable to companies developing drugs that may not necessarily have a survival benefit, but could have a improved experience benefit. And I'm looking forward to what the PRO committee develops and gives us a chance to contribute to.
Casey, do we have other questions? For some reason, I'm not seeing them in real time on my screen.
Nope, that was it. That's the only question that's come in.
Mike, was there, Dr. LeBlanc, was there something else you wanted to add?
No, I didn't. I was just about to say I couldn't answer the quality of life question.
I see Edie, I think you're still on, are you not?
I am.
Do you want to introduce yourself to the group? And she's also played a critical role. I should have made a separate bullet for you, Edie, in and of itself.
That's fine. My name is Edie Van Putten. I am at the Hope Foundation, and you know, SWOG Clinical Trials Partnerships will be the contract provider for all the contracts with our industry providers. So, you know, it's simple contracts that we've used for, you know, many years, and nothing really changes just because it's a CTP trial. We're excited to get rolling.
There's a question here. Are we able to utilize Nationwide to store specimens? Who could address that?
I can. So we have a plan in place for specimen banking, and we are able to use Nationwide. Of course, we are not able to use the grant funding that we typically do. So we would need to get any biobanking funded, and we're also talking with other labs and potential opportunities to bank elsewhere. But yeah, to answer that question, we can use Nationwide for a fee.
Okay. Well, seeing no other questions, last chance, audience. Feel free. We'll give you an extra few minutes until your next meeting or whatever else you need to do yet today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Casey, again for your help, Courtney, Crystal, Mike, and all the rest of the team. And with that, we'll conclude. And feel free to, again, go to the website, send us any additional questions or any contacts you may have. Have a good afternoon, evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you both. Thank you, Kathy.
Bye.
You're welcome.